Hello everyone, and I hope you're having a great day. Today we're exploring a quiet moment that feels stronger than any promise. Alex comes home early and finds Tuna sitting still with her sales notebook open, trying to look fine when she isn't. Instead of asking too much, he makes one simple choice: he stays. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. The work at the yard ended more smoothly than Alex expected. He started before sunrise at the starch plant, checking the soaking vats and watching the first batches thicken into a steady, pale slurry. By late morning, the orders were packed. Men hauled sacks to the storage rack, swept the wet floor, and rolled the last barrels into place. Alex walked the line once more, asked 2 short questions, and got 2 quick nods. Nothing was urgent enough to keep him there until dusk. After lunch, he crossed to the wood slicing shop. The saws had been loud earlier, but now the blades spun down between cuts, and the air carried a clean scent of fresh timber. Workers stacked thin boards, gathered offcuts, and pushed sawdust into tidy piles. Alex checked the schedule pinned near the doorway, compared it to the work already finished, and looked at the time. He didn't call anyone. He put his phone back into his pocket and decided to go home now. All morning, one image kept returning: Tuna's face when she told him she felt better. She'd said it lightly, like the word could close the subject, but her skin had been a touch pale, and her eyes held that disciplined focus she used when she didn't want anyone to worry. Alex knew her patterns. When she was fine, she moved fast, laughed without thinking. When she wasn't, she tried to keep everything steady so no one would notice the effort. He hadn't pressed her with questions. He didn't like interrogating people he loved, but he also didn't like leaving them alone with a burden they insisted on carrying. So he did what he could without asking permission. Finished early and drove home. The road ran through fields and low trees. A warm breeze slid in through the open window. Alex drove slower than usual, because his mind kept turning over practical worries. Had she eaten? Had she rested? Had she lifted buckets to water the flowers again? Had she stood under the sun because the notebook had to be kept, because the day never paused for a weak body? At the gate, the yard looked strangely quiet. Usually Tuna's presence filled the hours. Footsteps on the path, the clink of a bowl, her voice calling something ordinary from the doorway. Today there was none of that, only leaves shifting and a bird beyond the fence. Alex parked and walked in. The flowers along the path were bright, but no one was tending them. He moved toward the bamboo table near the front, and that's where he saw her. Tuna sat with her sales notebook open. Her pen rested on the page, but the writing had paused mid-line, as if her thoughts had slipped away and left her hand behind. She stared toward the yard, not really looking. When Alex's steps reached her, she blinked, looked up, and arranged her face into something normal. "You're home," she said, as if he'd returned at the usual time. "Earlier," Alex answered. He sat beside her, not across, close enough that she could feel him without feeling watched. He didn't touch the notebook. He didn't start with advice. He just looked at her, the set of her shoulders, the slight slackness around her mouth that meant she was spending energy to stay composed. "What did you eat?" he asked. "A little rice," she said quickly, "and water." "How much is a little?" Alex asked, steady. Tuna tried to smile. The smile came out small. "Not much, but I'm not hungry." Alex didn't argue. "Did you rest in the middle of the day?" "I stayed home more," she said. "I didn't stand outside in the sun." "That's different from resting," Alex replied. She glanced down and flipped a page as if to prove she was fine, then stopped because even that motion seemed to cost her. Alex saw the scattered entries, the uneven spacing, the few crossed-out numbers. He knew her normal handwriting, tight, neat, almost impatient. Today it looked careful, as if she had to guide each stroke. "Headache?" he asked. "A bit," she admitted after a pause. "Dizzy?" "No." Alex nodded once. He stood and went inside without announcing it. He returned with a cup of warm water, no tea, nothing strong, just warmth, and placed it near her hand. Tuna glanced at it, then at him. "I'm not sick enough for that." "Drink," Alex said. She hesitated, then lifted the cup with both hands and took a slow sip. Alex sat again and waited until she set it down. "I'm still not fully well," Tuna said quietly. "I'm better than this morning. Just not back." Alex watched her. He could have given a speech. Instead, he chose the simplest action. "Today I'm staying home," he said. Tuna's eyes lifted sharply. "Why?" "You still have work." "Work can wait," Alex replied. "I'm here." She opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. The protest remained in her posture, in the way she held herself as if she should stand and do something to deserve the comfort being offered. Alex recognized that instinct. Tuna liked to be the one who handled things. "I don't want you to lose time because of me," she said. "I'm not losing time," Alex answered. "I'm choosing where to spend it." That line quieted her. She looked at her hands, then the notebook, then past the flowers as if she needed to reshape the day in her mind. Alex didn't push for a reply. He stayed beside her. After a while, he brought a thin blanket from inside and set it over the back of her chair. He didn't wrap it around her. He simply made it available. Tuna stared at it for a second, pride and relief flickering across her face. Then she drew it over her shoulders. The afternoon eased. Tuna stopped writing. She held the warm cup again, sipping when she remembered. Alex asked small questions now and then, nothing that felt like an exam. "Any nausea? Your throat okay? Want to lie down?" Each time Tuna answered, and each time her voice sounded a little less strained. Outside, the sun began to tilt. Shadows lengthened across the yard, and the flowers along the path moved gently in the breeze. Tuna stayed seated. Alex stayed beside her. He didn't make grand promises. He just made the present easier to carry. And for the first time that day, Tuna didn't look like she was bracing herself alone quietly. Alex did not announce that he was going to cook. He simply stood up from the bamboo table, rolled his sleeves once, and walked into the kitchen as if the next task belonged to him. Tuna watched with a faint frown, half ready to rise and follow. The habit was strong. If something needed doing, she did it. If someone else stepped in, she felt she should repay the effort at once. Alex glanced back before she could move. "Stay there," he said, not harsh, just certain. "If I need you, I'll ask." Tuna let out a breath that sounded like agreement and surrender in the same moment. She shifted on the chair, the blanket still around her shoulders, and placed her notebook aside. The page stayed open, but her pen remained untouched. She brought the warm cup close again, using it more for comfort than thirst. In the kitchen, Alex started with the basics. Rice first, washed until the water ran clear, then set to steam. He moved deliberately as if speed would invite mistakes. He cut vegetables with the same controlled attention he used at the yard. Straight lines, steady pressure, no wasted motion. A pot went onto the stove. Oil warmed. Garlic hit the pan with a soft hiss. Tuna sat where she could see him through the doorway. She listened to ordinary sounds, lid tapping, spoon against pot, the quiet shuffle of feet. Those sounds carried a message she didn't need spelled out. She was not responsible for every minute of this house. "Is the rice too much?" Alex called without turning. "It's fine," Tuna answered. "Just don't forget the water line." "I won't," he said. And then after a beat, "How's your head?" "Still there," she admitted, "but not worse." "Good," Alex said, as if not worse was a step worth respecting. He began talking while he cooked, the way some people whistled. Nothing dramatic, just details from his day. One worker miscounting sacks, and then laughing at himself. The saw blade needing a quick adjustment, the starch batch turning out smoother than expected. He delivered the stories with a dry calm that made them slightly funnier than they should have been. Tuna found herself smiling once, then again. At the wood shop, Alex said, someone tried to label the stacks and spelled everything wrong. If I didn't know better, I'd think he did it on purpose. Tuna's laugh came out soft, but it came. Did you fix it? I fixed 2, Alex said. Then I left the rest. Let him live with it. That's cruel, Tuna said, and the warmth in her voice surprised her. Alex met her eyes. Cruel would be making you cook today, Tuna tried to protest out of habit. You can rest, Alex cut in gently. That's the job. Dinner came together slowly. A light soup, vegetables stirred with salt and a few spices, a plate cooked plain and clean. Alex wasn't pretending to be a chef. He was making sure there was something warm, something easy to eat, something that didn't demand energy from her. When he carried the dishes to the table, Tuna stood up automatically. Alex raised a hand. Sit, he said. You're not paying for this with effort. Tuna paused, then sank back down. It felt strange, almost wrong, to be served in her own home. But the strangeness softened into relief when she let it. They ate facing each other. The first few bites were quiet. Tuna chewed slowly, as if she was testing whether her appetite was real. Alex watched without staring, noting small changes. Her eyes looked clearer, her breathing sounded less shallow. The color in her face returned in small increments. Better? He asked. A little, Tuna said. The food helps. Alex nodded. It usually does. She took another bite, then said more honestly, I didn't realize how tired I was until you came home. Alex didn't reach for her hand. He only replied, That's why I came home. Tuna held his gaze for a moment. The truth in his tone made it hard to argue. She looked down and kept eating, slower now, without the anxious speed she carried on normal days. After dinner, Alex cleared the plates before she could move. He washed them at the sink, water running steady. Tuna stayed nearby, watching the simple rhythm: rinse, scrub, stack. The work looked ordinary, but it carried a quiet tenderness because it was not hers tonight. When the kitchen was clean, Alex stepped outside with a bucket and a small dipper. Evening had settled over the yard, and the light had turned golden at the edges. He walked along the path and watered the flowers one section at a time. He didn't rush. Each scoop of water rose, poured, soaked into soil, and disappeared. Tuna stood on the porch, blanket still around her shoulders. She didn't go down to help. She simply watched. She had been measuring her worth in how much she could do, how much she could hold without asking for support. Watching Alex, she realized support could be quiet, unannounced, and still strong. When Alex finished, he set the bucket down and looked back at her. The porch light clicked on, bathing the doorway in a soft yellow glow. Come inside, he said. It's getting cooler. Tuna obeyed without arguing. Inside, the house felt settled, as if the day had been rearranged into something gentler. She sat again, and Alex brought her another cup of warm water, placing it beside her like before. You can sleep early, he said. I'll lock up. Tuna swallowed. The old reflex pushed up. No, I should, but she stopped it. She looked at him and let the words come out differently. Thank you, she said. Alex nodded once, as if thanks were acceptable but unnecessary. Then he added quietly, Rest isn't a mistake, Tuna. You don't have to prove anything to me. He stayed close, not hovering, just present, and that presence made the room feel safer than any promise could for her tonight, too. Outside, the yard was still. The flowers drank their water. The light held steady in the window. Tuna felt the day loosen its grip, and for the first time in a while, she let herself believe she did not have to be strong every moment, because someone else was willing to be strong for her without making a show of it.
Alex tan làm sớm và quyết định về nhà. Sân nhà yên tĩnh lạ thường. Anh thấy Tử Na đang ngồi với cuốn sổ tay mở, mặt tái nhợt và có vẻ lơ đãng, vẫn chưa hoàn toàn bình phục. Anh nhẹ nhàng hỏi thăm cô, ăn uống, nghỉ ngơi, đau đầu, rồi ở nhà để cô không phải gánh vác mọi việc một mình. Tối hôm đó, Alex nấu bữa tối trong khi Tử Na nghỉ ngơi gần đó. Anh kể những câu chuyện nhỏ để tạo không khí thoải mái và nhắc nhở cô rằng nghỉ ngơi không có gì sai. Sau khi ăn xong, anh tới hoa dọc lối đi trong khi cô ngồi trên hiên nhà quan sát. Tập phim kết thúc dưới ánh sáng ấm áp với việc Tử Na nhận ra rằng cô không cần phải mạnh mẽ mọi lúc, bởi vì Alex luôn âm thầm mạnh mẽ bên cạnh cô khi cô cần.